Danielle Campo McLeod is a celebrated Paralympic swimmer, keynote speaker, and resiliency expert. Diagnosed initially with muscular dystrophy, and later correctly with spinal muscular atrophy with lower extremity predominance, Danielle has had her share of challenges to overcome and triumphs to celebrate. From her record-setting performances at the Paralympic Games to her impactful advocacy work and role as a devoted mother, Danielle embodies the power of perseverance.
Thank you so much, Danielle Campo, for joining me here on AwareNow to share the space and to share your story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to get to just connect and share my story.
Danielle, your journey from being diagnosed initially with muscular dystrophy to becoming a Paralympic champion, I can only imagine the amount of challenges that must have come with that. Can you share, what was that pivotal moment during your athletic career when you realized the profound impact of your resilience, not just on your performance, but on your identity and your advocacy work?
Yeah, a wonderful question. So I was so lucky, and when you talk about gratitude, I have such gratitude for the way my parents took my diagnosis and gave that, we focus on those positive things, focus on the good muscles. What could I do? And so I could move in the water. And so that's where I found the water. And I'll never forget, it was one swim practice. I was quite a bit younger than the older kids that were training for the Paralympics. So probably about 5 or 6 years younger. And I remember watching these two boys and asking my coach at the time, what are they doing? And him explaining to me, they're training for the Paralympics. Paralympics are parallel to the Olympics. The exact same, competition. The only difference is those athletes have a physical disability. And I remember looking at him and saying, so I could go to the Paralympics? And he said, absolutely. And I said, well, then I want to do that workout. And he said, no, that's, and I said, I want to do that workout. And I remember swimming that workout, and it was so intense to the point that the swimmers that were getting ready to come into the pool next lined up on the side of the pool and were cheering for me. And it was 150 meters. So you did 100 times 50 meters. So there and back 100 times. And I was like, I'm going to do this, and I want to do this workout. And of course, I was so much slower than everybody that I was another hour finishing it. And I remember touching the wall and just feeling like that was the last time anybody would tell me what my body couldn't do. They may have ideas, but then I would show them. And what happened in that was the connection that built around me, and being able to see people who don't even know your name cheering for you, but knowing something is, and I always went back to that moment as that's my try me moment. Give it to me. Let me push through. And it changed my identity from having a disability as being something that weighs on your shoulders to something that I'm going to mold and I'm going to use, and I'm going to challenge myself every day in it.
That's such an amazing story. Wow. 100 times.
Yes, it was intense.
I love how you say that was your try me moment, because I do, and looking at the different talks that you do, and that one thing that just struck me so much is instead of why me, it try me. And I love that attitude, which has undoubtedly led to this incredible success that you've experienced. So let's talk about memoirs. That's a fun memoir. Resurrections, My Will to Survive as Olympian. You share challenges, triumphs in your life. What was the most difficult chapter to write, and how did reliving those experiences shape your perspective on your own personal resilience and growth?
I think so. Memoirs came to be resurrections. My Will to Survive is because people would say things to me like, we prayed so hard for you, we lit a candle, and we're so happy you're alive. And then they would finish it with, you got to write a book. So I was like, I got to write a book. I got to write my story. And I lived my story. So we don't often take time to step back and go through each step of the process. And when I did that, exactly like you said, it was living those moments of, talking about being bullied as a kid and going back to those moments of, how difficult that was when you don't understand that you're building that try me toolkit is what I like to call it. Right. And so you don't know what you're living through those moments because you're going to need those moments later, but they just suck and they're awful. And so living those experiences again, going through the journey with my diagnosis and kind of going through all of that, I definitely think for me, the most difficult part was my husband shared a lot about his journey of after I was sick and what that looked like. And when my husband talked to Marty, my associate on the book, he shared some of the story that I didn't know because I was fighting for my life at the time. So going through that together and hearing the difficult times that my kids went through, that my husband went through, it really grounded me into finding that purpose for this pain. And, if I can share my story so that others could connect to it. And then talking about my son was actually our middle child, Samson, was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy. And I was sitting at Marty's table when we received that final diagnosis call. And so I walked through that with Marty and his amazing wife, Nancy. And that was probably the hardest how do you finish writing this with a hopeful, a story of now I'm a parent with a child with a disability and not ever being afraid to share that, but to say, we walked through this thinking our kids couldn't have what I had, and then finding out that they could, and then knowing and having it confirmed that Samson did have it. That journey and those lenses now as a parent just shifted so much. So that was really difficult to share, about that, but felt so important because it was really about, hey, here's where we are today.
Living with the disability yourself is one thing. And then on top of it, though, to have your child then, because you know the burden, you know the weight of it, and to know that your child, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's a different world that I don't think we get to talk about enough, of like how sometimes our greatest gifts can also be our heaviest burdens, and that's okay, right? Like, yeah, I've walked life and I've conquered, whatever this disability and, the adversities that it's thrown at me. But I love when I look at try me moments, for me, it means that it doesn't always mean I'm going to be okay with this or that I have to be this warrior of like, try me. It can mean that sometimes I'm going to break right down and say, I don't want him to have the pain that he has, but that, hey, this is, we're going to walk through this together, or, there's going to be a purpose for this for sure. So definitely, I allow myself to have moments where I call them with my husband, like my real moments where I get to say, yeah, I'm going to be so resilient, and man, this is going to make a great chapter one day, but this sucks. And that's okay to be real.
Yes, it has to. Yes. And that's the point we have to get to, right? To say that it sucks right now, and that's okay. Like it's going to be what it is.
Yeah.
So balancing a successful career, advocacy work, and being a mother, you mentioned Samson, but a mother of 5 children. It's not any small feat. I have 6, so I hear you 100%.
Yeah.
How do you instill the values of perseverance and resilience that you have gained in your children?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. We live in a unique world right now, don't we? So I think for me, the biggest thing is modeling. I am never, ever afraid to share with them that, right now, mom is struggling. Or, that wasn't my best moment. and I'm going to really work hard. I'm human. And I tell my kids that all the time. I'm human and I'm going to try better. Or, you know what? I celebrate my successes with them. When they've got all their socks on, like, bar is low. If I can get their socks on and we have got the circus leaving to the minivan, we are happy and we celebrate those successes, right? So I think it's just really about being open and modeling for them, the best that I can. Taking care of myself, we're so lucky because we're a blended family. My 2 older children are my stepchildren, and I just love watching that bond of the siblings come together and celebrating all those moments. But yeah, really just modeling that resilience and giving them the words, right? So how can we do this better? Or how can we do this different? Or what is it that's bugging you right now? And we do a lot of naming it in our family. So what is it that's really bothering me, and what can I control and what can I not control? And I think some of the easiest things is, I let the kids get into the car when it's hot and tell them, like, the AC's coming, right? We got to work through these little moments. And my kids will laugh at me like, yeah, mom, it's building up our toolkit. And so I know, like, they joke it back. So they're hearing me. They're making fun of me for it now, but they're hearing me. And so, yeah, I just really try to model it and also try to know that I'm real. And it's okay that sometimes I'm going to mess up.
It's wonderful advice for any and every parent. And then it takes some of the stress away, when we can just be real with our kids and we can say, yeah, I made a mistake. Or I'm going to do better. But just to be real,
Right.
to be honest with it.
Yes.
So let's reverse that a bit. What lessons have your children taught you along the way?
I think they get credit for teaching me how to be real. I think as a social worker, as a Olympic athlete, my whole life has been about training and coaching and doing. And then these beautiful gifts came along that it doesn't matter what the books say, they're going to do it their own way. So yeah, they've definitely given me that those lessons in sometimes you got to throw that manual away and go with where you are right now, right? I also think that for me, it's that, my faith is very important, and I love looking at their personalities, and they're so unique, and it just, you see them succeeding, or you see, my 8-year-old loves soccer right now, and I never would have imagined that I'd be on the side of a soccer game. Like, I thought we'd be by the pool, but I don't have a swimmer yet. And so just their joy becomes your joy. And so you get to celebrate, their exciting moments. And so I love that. I think they teach me every day about resilience and every day about gratitude, right? They're so happy for the littlest things, and it's the important things that matter the most to them.
That, and how you mentioned that it is the smallest things that they can get so excited about. And likewise, how you mentioned, I hear you with the socks on, if to celebrate those small successes to get
right. Nobody tells you that dressing kids is going to be like running your own circus sideshow. Like,
this is true. Yeah, Manuel. Bye.
Right.
So let's talk about the fact that as the director of culture and engagement at Muscular Dystrophy Canada, you've raised over $5 million for neuromuscular diseases. Can you share a particular memorable moment or breakthrough in your advocacy efforts that really reinforced your commitment to this cause? Because that work, it's not easy. And so what was a moment for you that really locked you in?
So I've been involved with Muscular Dystrophy Canada for over 24 years now. Our relationship really grew when I was competing, and I was invited to a conference to share my story of living with a neuromuscular disorder. So over those years, helping firefighters are one of their greatest fundraising support. So they have a 70-year relationship where firefighters have been supporting Muscular Dystrophy Canada. And so I would go and I would share my story, and it would encourage firefighters from all across our country to go back to their own departments and to, come up with creative ideas for fundraising events to raise money. And it was so important because it obviously living with a neuromuscular disorder, and seeing the work that Muscular Dystrophy Canada does, whether it's, emotional support for families, whether it's through their equipment program or the research, they put so much back into research for treatments. And, ultimately the goal is to find a cure. And so that is just incredible to see how they say every dollar counts, and where we've come in those 20 years that I've been working with them is amazing to see. The treatments that are out there, it's hope, right? For me, I often share with the firefighters that they really become our oxygen for someone living with a neuromuscular disorder, and how important that is, because now as a parent of a child with one, you get moments where you're filled with so much fear. And the only flicker of hope is that that there are people walking alongside you. So that advocacy for them has been so important to me, of, continuing to support that relationship in whatever that looks like. And it's not just firefighters. There's amazing donors, that come across Muscular Dystrophy Canada and support the journey that they're on. And that is going to lead to us finding a cure one day and finding treatment, and the amazing work that they're doing in advocacy of their own. They have almost all of Canada doing newborn screening now for spinal muscular atrophy. And that's so important because there's treatment available early for kids that, that fit, that it's appropriate. So it just it's my healing. It fuels my fire. It is definitely the thing that gives my pain purpose, because I know it connects me to so many other people walking this journey.
And what a gift that is, to have purpose for the pain. If it was
Absolutely.
pain alone,
Yeah.
much.
Mm-hmm.
So your keynote speeches and training sessions are known for their blend of humor alongside profound insights. How do you approach that sort of delicate balance of addressing serious topics like disability rights, personal empowerment, while keeping your audience engaged and inspired?
For me, it's really important to be genuine and to be real. So I really use a lot of my own personal stories. I share my journey. It's difficult to be vulnerable, but it's so important. And I think, I have those normal moments, I call them, where, we've all walked those moments where, I talk about it in my book, where we were in a restroom and it's my most embarrassing moment because Samson hit that slow opening door button and, there you go. And so, I weave those into, if you don't think that's perseverance, I rocked figuring out I was going to not show the entire restroom and truck stop what was happening. So I really like to share a bit of my real life moments. And really, my message is about connecting before we collect. And I think it's so important to be able to share, those moments of how do I do that? And it's simple, small steps. So yeah, I talk about some pretty heavy stuff with inclusion and, people's own times of learning how to find their own gold medal moments, and, how we all have our struggles. And I think the only way I can hold space for people is by not preaching, but by just being real, right? By sharing that, we name what we go through and we walk through it. And if I can hear, from one person that gave them the hope to keep pushing through, it means it's worth it for me. And you got to have fun. You got to laugh. You got to be able to say, whoa, this was a really bad moment or a really bad day. And, I'm going to pick myself up, or, this didn't go at all how I planned, but here's how I'm going to fix it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all you have of your story and just sharing you. Thank you for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.